Digital Education for All – Development of Technology-Enhanced Learning for Unemployed Persons. The content of this publication reflects the views only of the author, and the Commission cannot be held responsible for any use which may be made of the information contained therein. Project Thinking. Žena. Table of contents consists of following. What is a project? The difference between a program and a project. Roles in the project. Project cycle. Defining the project idea and constituent parts of the project. In the chapter 1, we will talk about what is a project. A project is a set of activities that contribute to a specific goal within a specific time frame with specific means. It does not represent the regular activity of the project applicant. The project consists of the following elements. Activities. Each project consists of work packages that lead to specific results or goals. Activities in the project must be described in detail and broken down into sub-activities and tasks. When creating activities, we have to take into account the resource that we have to provide for the implementation, either our own funds or partner funds, or provide them through the project. Objectives or results. All activities must lead to certain results, and the results lead to goals that represent the basic purpose for which we are implementing the project. This purpose contributes to the achievement of goals defined by individual programs, policies, or strategies. In this way, we define the interventional logic of the project. General goal. It usually represents the goal of the competition. Purpose or specific objective. It represents the basic purpose for which we are implementing the project. The results. The results are derived from the work package. Activities. The outcome of activities enable the achievement of the results. Figure 1. Logic of project intervention. Results and objectives must be measurable. We measure them through objectively verifiable indicators which must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed. We prove the achievement of the indicators with the documentation or verification sources, which is an integral part of the report on the implemented project. Resources consists of finances, equipment, or human resources. In order to carry out the activities, we need to secure the funds. We provide part of the funds through the project budget, and the rest must be provided by the applicant or partner. Time frame. Time is an important determinant of every project because every project has its beginning and end. All activities must be carried out in the time we have defined for that activity. When defining the time frame, we must be realistic, especially regarding the risks associated with the implementation of certain activities. Example of the project. Name of the project. With technology and education, we can do everything. Project goal. Strengthening the capacity of association for the application of STEM in everyday activities in working with target groups through a partnership with university. Project activities. Work package 1. Organization and implementation of capacity building activities, civil society organization for the implementation of the STEM popularization program. Conducted online research as a basis for creating a training program for trainers. Minimal 100 associations covered. Prepared training program for trainers with accompanying materials. 30 participants of the training were selected. Conducted training for trainers lasting 9 days, 3 modules, each lasting 3 days. Strengthened capacity of 30 people. Work package 2. The activities of the organization of permanent exhibitions of innovative interactive content with the purpose of popularizing STEM and implementing pilot groups for final. Users, children and young people and general population. Acquired and installed equipment that put into operation 3 lab classrooms, permanent setups for the application of STEM in Drniš, Knin and Osijek. Created 3 one-day programs of presentation of the content of the lab classroom. Conducted a total of 3 pilot presentations for 3 lab classrooms, minimum 30 participants. Work Package 3. Development and implementation of multi-day local workshops with the purpose of popularizing STEM. Prepared programs for 60 days of workshops for the popularization of STEM within the framework of TRIO Association. Natural, Sciences, Informatics, Engineering and Mathematics. Conducted 4 5-day programs in each lab classroom, Drniš, Osijek and Knin, a total of 60 days of workshops. Time of implementation, 24 months. Funds, employees and external experts for the implementation of workshops, equipment, travel expenses, the cost of designing and printing educational materials, the cost of accommodation for training participants. Figure 2, project with technology and education we can do everything. Chapter 2, the difference between a program and a project. Program contains general objectives to which a number of different projects contribute. Project objectives contribute to program objectives. Programs, policy strategies can be geographical, related to a certain geographical area, or sectoral, employment policy, social policy, entrepreneurship, etc. Project 1, Project 2, Project 3. Figure 3, graphic representation of program. Chapter 3, roles in the project. In order to successfully implement the project, we must perform a very good stakeholder analysis and assign the right roles to the stakeholders regarding their capacities, strengths and weaknesses, expectations from the project, and depending on their impact on the project and project on them. Here are the following roles in the project. Applicant or applicant of the project is the legal person who submits the project and who is responsible for the overall implementation of the project's activities and spending of funds. After signing the contract, the applicant becomes a user, successful applicant. Partner, a legal entity that implements the project together with the applicant, implements part of the activities for which the applicant does not have the capacity and is entitled to the part of the funds to cover the cost of those activities. Collaborators, legal entities whose role is support and assistance in the implementation of the certain activities. Target group. Target group is a natural or legal person who participate directly in project activities and have a direct long-term benefit from the outcome of these activities. End user. End users do not participate in the project activities, but they benefit indirectly from them. Subcontractors. Subcontractors are legal or natural persons that we hire for the implementation of services, procurement of goods, or execution of works. Figure 4. Project team meeting. Chapter 4. Project cycle. Project cycle consists of the following elements: programming, identification, formulation, financing, implementation and monitoring, and evaluation. Figure 5 represents project cycle. Programming. Tender announcement. The competition is announced in order to achieve the goals of certain strategies and policies at the local, regional, national, and European level. The tender usually contains the text of the invitation to submit the project, detailed instructions for sending the project documentation, and the forms that need to be filled in, which make up the project documentation. The relevance of the project is assessed by the extent to which the requirements of the tender are met in the relation to the acceptability of the applicant, partners, activities, costs and amount of financing, target group, area of implementation, and duration of the project. If the project is not relevant for a specific tender, it will not be funded. Figure 6 represents goals of the UN Sustainable Development Programme until 2030. Identification. In order for the project to be successfully implemented, it must meet the needs of the local community where it is implemented. It does not necessarily mean that all tenders are always relevant to all communities and their problems or needs. It would be best to have a list of projects that are needed by a particular community and then wait for tenders for those projects. Identification consists of two phases. Analysis phase, which contains stakeholder analysis, problem analysis, goal analysis, and strategy analysis. Planning phase, creation of a logic matrix or development of intervention logic, development of activities and costs. Formulation, filling out project application forms, depending on the competition. Taking care of the specific tender, fill in the forms in accordance with the requirements of the tender. Pay particular attention to the criteria by which each project will be scored. Financing. Financing consists of sending the project application and, in the case of positive assessment, concluding a financial contract. The project application with the budget is an integral part of the contract, and this should be taken into account when writing the project. It is important to say that what we write represents our contractual obligation. Implementation and monitoring. Implementation of the project in accordance with contractual obligations is very important. We have to monitor the implementation and document it. We implement the project in accordance with what we have written, and we must especially pay attention to activities and carry them out as described. Time. Take into account the time frames defined for individual activities. Funds. Spend financial resources in accordance with the budget items and take care of the transparency of the spending of funds. Goals. It is mandatory to take into account the set indicators for goals and results, and we must achieve them both qualitatively and quantitatively. This does not mean that there will be no changes during the implementation of the project. The project changes due to various external facts, including the implementation itself, but we must record each implementation and report it to the donor in accordance with contractual obligations. Evaluation. At the end of the project cycle, we carry out an evaluation. In example, evaluation taking into account of the following: relevance, analysis of the interrelationship and logic of project goals, methodology and activities, whether the chosen methodology was suitable for the goals and target groups. Efficiency, analysis of the way of carrying out planned activities, structures, procedures, and their implementation in practice, cooperation and interaction between project partners, interaction with project users, ways in which project participants reacted to the challenges of participation of stakeholders. Effectiveness. The impact of the project on the target group and on the end user. Assessment of the extent to which the project contributed to the set goals in the long term, defining the areas of the most visible change and success as well as challenges. Impact of the project. Defining the short-term and long-term impact on the project. Project goals achieved, contribution to social development and policies, and added value of the project. Sustainability, institutional, programmatic, or financial. Assessment of the measure of probability that the results achieved by the project will continue and have an impact on the project's beneficiaries even after the end of the project. Compliance. Compliance of the project in relation to regional, national, and EU policies related to employment, social inclusion, and poverty reduction. Chapter 5. Defining the project idea. Who are the stakeholders? What are their expectations, needs, and shortcomings? What problems do I want to solve, needs to satisfy? What goals do I want to achieve? What is the most cost-effective strategy for achieving the goals? Figure 7 represents phases of analysis. Stakeholder analysis. Stakeholders are all those who can influence the project positively or negatively and who are affected positively or negatively by the project. Stakeholder and the project. Figure 8. Mutual influence of stakeholders and the project. Stakeholder analysis procedure. Define the project idea. Browse through the stakeholders related to the given topic. Fill in the attached table. Stakeholder, interests and expectations from the project, problems and limitations, possible response to the stakeholders' interests, potentials and shortcomings or measures. Young people in rural area settlements, improved STEM knowledge, unavailability of adequate education and programs, development and implementation of programs in the STEM field, associations, strengthen capacities for the application of STEM, lack of capacity for STEM application, equipping the association, training employees and volunteers. Figure 9. Stakeholder analysis matrix. Problem analysis. It represents the process of arranging problems in a cause and effect relationship. The process of making the so-called problem tree. Define the key issue related to the project topic. Next, we have to define the central problem and place it in the center of the problem tree. The central problem is a large number of unemployed women over the age of 50. Figure 10. How to define the central problem. Next, we have to downgrade the problems that cause the central problem. A large number of unemployed women over the age of 50. Older women are insufficiently competitive on the labor market. Employers are reluctant to hire older people. A lack of quality employment programs. Aversion to lifelong learning. Insufficient social skills. Insufficient awareness of women's problems. Insufficient cooperation of the public and civil sectors. Figure 11. Defining the cause of the central problem. For the next part, it is important to enter the consequences of the central problem to our problem tree. Increased risk of poverty and social exclusion, and economic dependence on male family members. Figure 12. Defining the consequences of the central problem. We use the problem tree for elaboration of the tree of goals. In example, definition of the means to achieve the goals. Defining the strategy of the future project, problem-solving interventions. Elaboration of the problem in the project form and justification of the relevance of the project to the problem or need we want to solve. In the analysis of objectives, the goal tree is a positive mirror image of the problem tree. It shows goals in a means-end relationship. The procedure is to reframe problems into positive statements. In this part, we need to check the means-end logic in such a way that the goals at a lower level represent the means to achieve the goals at a higher level. Motivation for lifelong learning, develop social skills, community awareness about women's problems, cooperation between the public and civil sectors, all lead to older women being more competitive in the labor market. Employers tend to hire older people. Existence of quality employment programs. The number of unemployed women over 50 has decreased. reduced risk of poverty and social exclusion, economic independence from male family members. Figure 13, defining the problem tree. In the strategy analysis, based on the criteria, we select the goals that enter our project. The criteria can be conditions prescribed by the tender, acceptable activities, cost, time of implementation, results of stakeholders analysis, capacities of applicants and partners, and the like. We mark on the goal tree the goals that are included in the project and the goals that remain outside of the project. For red, we will not include them in the project, and the green, we will include them in the project. When we implement the color system to the problem tree, we should have this: general goal, purpose of the project, the results of the project, and the activities. Analysis of the strategy allows us to define the intervention of the future project, activities that lead to results, results lead to purpose, and the purpose contributes to the general goal of the project, which is mostly the goal of particular program or policy. Figure 14 represents defining the strategy of the future project. In the chapter 6, we will talk about constituent parts of the project. First thing is description of the problem. In this part, we describe the analysis of the problem we arrived at through the elaboration of the problem tree. The problem presents a negative picture, and the description must be accompanied by concrete numerical data. First, I briefly describe the bigger picture, and then we include the description of what we will solve with our project. For example, according to the data of the Croatian Employment Service of the regional office in Šibenik, HZZ Šibenik, in the area where the project will be implemented, at the end of June 2017, a total of 347 unemployed persons were registered, at which 172 were women, share of 49.57%. Out of mentioned numbers, the largest number of women with high school education and over 50 years of age were registered, together with women with disabilities, victims of domestic violence, and treated drug addicts. They will form the target group of the project. Preference in the selection of the target group will be given to the members of national minorities, whose position is extremely difficult in the observed area. Likewise, it should be emphasized that although, according to the official data, there are more unemployed men than women, it should be noted that there is a large number of women who do not register with Croatian Employment Service. This is partially related to the position of women in these areas, which is much more difficult compared to men. In the mentioned areas, a patriarchal attitude is still present in which men play a leading role. The traditional division of jobs into men's and women's jobs and seeing women primarily as housewives and mother is visible. The second part is description of the target group. Target group directly participates in the project activities and is directly affected by the project results. It is necessary to describe the target group in detail, express it numerically, describe its problems, and how the project contributes to solving those problems. For example, the project will include 15 long-term unemployed women, of whom minimal 50% to be older than 50 years, with a lower level of education. These women do not have enough knowledge to make them competitive on the labor market, and with the project we will improve their competitiveness on the labor market through online education. Next, we have the end users. They do not participate directly in the project activities, they benefit indirectly from the project. They do not have to be expressed numerically or described in detail. It is enough to list them and state what benefit they have for the project. For example, the final beneficiaries are the families of unemployed women, as the project will contribute to reducing the risk of poverty for those families. In the next part, we have description of objectives with indicators. General goal, contribute to reducing the risk of poverty of unemployed women. It usually represents the goal of the competition to which our project contributes. Purpose or specific objective. The number of unemployed women over 50 has decreased. It clearly defines what we want to achieve with specific project and why we carry out activities. Indicators. Indicators are usually defined by tender. All goals must be measurable through indicators, qualitative, quantitative, and time-bound. For example, by the end of the project, we will improve the competitiveness on the labor market of 50 long-term unemployed women. In the fifth part, we will have the activity description and activity timetable, which is also called Gantt timetable. Here, it is important to describe through work packages how we will achieve the goals or results. Each group of activities leads to the achievement of one result. The description of activities usually contains a detailed elaboration of sub-activities and tasks, indicating which results it contributes to, who is responsible for their implementation, resources, and time required for their realization. In this part, we will have horizontal activities, which are project management and promotion and visibility. Here is the example of activity development. Name of work package 1. Employment of women. The result is employed 50 women in the first 3 months of the project. Analysis of activities and tasks. 1.1 Publish a tender. 1.2 Conduct testing. 1.3 Sign the employment contract with the selected candidate. 1.4 Introduce female employees into work process. Responsibility. Project manager and assistant. Croatian Employment Services expert. Resources. Human resources, testing materials, computer. Time. 1 to 3 months of project implementation, not calendar months. Figure 15, as we already said, is example of activity development. In the timetable, we will enter the main activities indicating in which months the project will be implemented. Facilitate the visualization of the time schedule for the implementation of the project activities. First activity will be to publish the tender. This will happen in the first month of the project. The responsibility for this activity is on manager and the CES expert. Second activity will be to conduct the testing. This will happen in the second month of the project and the responsibility goes on the CES experts. Third activity will be to sign the employment contract with the selected candidates. This will happen also in the second month and the responsibility will be on the project manager and assistant. And the fourth activity is to introduce female employees into work process. This will happen in the third month of the project and the responsibility of the project manager and the assistant. Figure 16 shows us an example of a Gantt table. In the sixth part, we will describe applicants' and partners' capacity. Here it is important to indicate how much experience and the knowledge the applicant or partner has in the field of project management, implementation of similar activities and projects, financial capacity, capacity related to human resources and equipment. The eighth part of the project will be sustainability. Sustainability is defined on several levels, most often as institutional, how the achieved results and outcomes of activities will be used in the future, and financial, how the results will be financed in the future. For example, in the institutional, after the project, women will use the acquired knowledge and skills to find employment more easily. In the financial, Sustainability. The implementation of similar activities will be financed by securing funds from the local budget. Next part will be budget with explanation. It must be realistic, acceptable according to the specific tender, and reasonable, necessary to achieve the results. Our budget of explanation consists of the following: the name of the item, unit, number of units, amount per unit, in total, and explanation. Under the name of the item, we will write salaries of female employees. Under the unit, we will write month. Number of units is 12. Amount per unit will be 2,000 euros, which in total is 24,000 euros. In the explanation, we will write that the cost of the salary of a person employed in sewing jobs, cost defined by internal regulations. For the figure 17, we show example of a budget table. For the final part of the project, we will have summary of the project. In this part, it is important to briefly describe the project in a few sentences. The summary of the project is usually written at the end, however, it is at the beginning of the project application. And at the end, figure 18 will show signing of the contract on the allocation of funds for a successfully applied project. The end. Thank you for listening to the Project Thinking course. If you feel like you've learned everything, please solve the final test.